Josh, welcome to Dad Saves America.
Thanks a lot, man. Fun to be here.
One of the reasons why I was excited to have you on is like you're like on camera, just nothing but positive energy. And man, do we need that right now, right? There's so much negativity out there in the world. And I feel like anybody that can bring optimism, positivity, and a dad at the same time is just somebody I want to be talking to. So where does that come from? Have you always just been like Mr. Smiles since you were a little kid or what?
Well, first, I'm thankful that they let me play these parts, because they're all very well-written characters, and they're definitely freeing to live inside of these characters for sure. But yeah, man, I'm always, man, the best way to be is to try to be laughing through certain things, right? And I definitely won't deny that I like having a good time. I definitely, grew up trying to enjoy myself, but I think that starts with my family. I come from really, really loving and supportive parents. I definitely think it started there.
What was your house like with your parents? Paint the picture of, the Segarra family.
Yeah, I grew up in Longwood, Florida. It's a town outside of Orlando. My parents moved from Puerto Rico after they graduated pharmacy school. They moved to Palm Beach, Florida. I'm really thankful for the life that my parents gave me and my brother and my sister. And I can look back now and I remember my parents vividly working hard to be able just to get us on every field trip and let me play whatever sport I wanted to play. And really thankful for this life that my parents have given me.
You mentioned Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
So I worked for several years at Nick I think you would have been like 15 when I was working at Nick.
Okay.
So I want to hear, what were your favorite Nickelodeon shows?
Well, you tell me first. What'd you work on?
So I was in the promos department here in the city.
Okay.
So, I was doing for everything, Rocket Power, SpongeBob,
Of course.
Jimmy Neutron.
Of course.
Invader Zim had just left the air when I joined Nick.
Okay.
But, and some of the Nick Jr. stuff.
Wow. Okay. So I remember I would watch Rocket Power the most out of the ones you mentioned.
Really?
Absolutely.
Do you remember the Rocket Power movie?
Of course.
So
of course.
I did this trailer that was, it was like, I started off at MTV, and so I wanted to be like in bigger, more adult stuff.
Yeah.
So I got to do the promo for Rocket Power. And so I was like, I got to make this like a big movie trailer. So I got Don LaFontaine to do the voice.
That's awesome.
Like, in a world, like,
that's awesome.
One kid confronts his past.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's very cool that you worked on that. That's awesome. I remember Stickly.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that when he was throwing you to Pete and Pete? I started on Salute Your Shorts, Hey Dude.
Yes.
And then
the classics.
Come on. Then from there, it was All About All That and Keenan and Kel. Those were my two favorites, of course, but I wanted to be on All That, man. I mean, I was imagining what it would be like to be those kids that were doing it, what seemed like my backyard,
Because you were in Orlando, right?
In Orlando. So,
you got Disney World,
30 minutes out. Exactly.
Nick.
Exactly. Every time we went to Universal, I'd want to do the walkthrough tour, see where Double Dare was shot, Every time we went to Disney, if they ever needed a volunteer for anything, it was me shooting my hand up. I wanted to be on that stage with them,
My boss was one of Neil Sherman's. He did all kinds of stuff with Mark Summers and getting slimed. So
that's awesome. I dreamt of being on Double Dare, Legend of the Hidden Temple, all the game shows back then for sure. And then, of course, the cartoons. I actually just introduced my oldest and my 3-year-old to Hey Arnold yesterday. Watched that. I grew up on Doug, grew up on Rugrats, and Hey Arnold was, big in our house. Rocko's Modern Life. Dude, you're talking about my childhood right there.
I went to school with my best friend, Josh. His first job out of school was at WWE in Stamford, Connecticut.
Awesome. You guys lived dream lives to me. That's what you did. You and Nickelodeon, him at WWE, of course.
So tell me about that. What got you into WWE when you were a kid?
My first human memory is the Great Muta spitting green mist into Sting's face. Okay, so I was probably 2 years old. I remember being in my uncle's house in
Wait,
Puerto
you're
Rico.
remembering this in 2 years at 2 years old?
Vividly, dude. That's what's funny. Like when they talk about how you don't have like real memories until I think like 6 or 7, they say the brain, right?
Yeah.
But you have those like really distant memories that you don't really know what they were. And then you ask certain questions and then you fill in certain holes. So yeah, first memory I think I have in my brain is Muda and Sting. So it just started, man. It was at that time in my life, and it's just been with me ever since. You know, I had certain VHSs that I had on repeat in my house. It was WrestleMania 6, the Ultimate Challenge between Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. You know, the IC title versus for the world title. You know, WrestleMania 4, the Macho Man tournament that he ends up winning it. You know, beating the $1 Million Man on the way. You know, just vivid wrestling memories. And then as I got older, you know, I was obsessed with it, man. I was doing wrestling matches in my backyard and, you know, acting like the NWO. And then, of course, as a teenager, that's when the Attitude Era was going on. So I was just, you know, imitating Stone Cold and Rocky and just, yeah, man, going to every live event that my parents, you know, I'd beg them to take me and they'd take me as many as they could. I think that was also another aspect of my introduction to acting.
Well, that was gonna
acting
ask.
like these guys.
You're getting to kind of relive that childhood dream with Heels, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about Heels for those that don't know about the show.
For sure.
And, you know, how is that connected?
Man, Heels is a show that a good buddy of mine, Stephen Amell, has dreamt about his whole life. And that first season came out, and I was just, I was the biggest fan of that show. I could sing you the opening credit song right now. I won't, but I could, you know, I sang it for that whole cast. And loved it because it's not just a show about wrestling, about a wrestling organization. It's a show about brothers, and it's a show about family. And they go down a bunch of great avenues on that show. So, you know, in jest, of course, it's like, yo, bro, whenever you need me, like, I'm here, whatever you need. And Mike O'Malley is the showrunner of that. And talk about Nickelodeon, remember Guts?
Oh my God, Mike O'Malley.
Host, come on, let's take it to Mo.
Well, not to mention, so when I was at Spike, Mike O'Malley was the voice of a lot of Spike
There
stuff,
you go.
especially like early in the brand. And my
There
boss
you
knew
go.
this. He was like, "Oh, we gotta get Mike O'Malley."
You were at Spike too? Come on.
Yeah, for 7 years, I was a creative. I was at Spike, and then I was one of the 2 creative directors towards the end. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I remember Spike all those years, man. Of course. You guys had wrestling for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Spike had WWE for a
we
while.
had Impact.
Absolutely.
We had it was a big part. I mean,
Spike
all
TV.
these, you know, it is funny because I just kind of forgot about that. Like, you know, our entertainment lives have been wrapped around each other.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very influential in my life, John.
Oh my God, that's so funny to hear.
So, Mike spoke to an actor on the show named Marsha DeBonis, who's an incredible casting director as well, and she's a dear friend of mine. And he says to her, "Hey, I need to cast this part." And she's like, "Hey, there's this kid Josh who's in town right now shooting She-Hulk.
Yeah.
He should be this part." So it wasn't even Steve. So Mike gets my name from Marsha.
Well, that's the best because that means it's like you're not using your crony.
He goes up to Steve
Right.
and he goes, "Hey, just Googled this kid Josh. He said he worked on Arrow." And Steve was like, "Are you kidding me, man?" Boop, boop, text me and Mike on the thread. And he's like, "Hey, just introducing you two. I'll see you soon, bro." And that's what started it. We figured out what part I was going to play. And I get to play a great character named Brooks Rizzo on there and bring a little bit of fun to it.
Were you a performer early? Because, you know, you've been a working actor now, like basically right out of the gate, it seems like. So how did that really start to be a thing where you're like, this is what I want to do?
I was a performer at first privately, right? Like it was like to my buddies, you know, like acting like wrestlers, you know, like, but how can you not be a performer? You're carrying around a title and you're talking in the mirror, you know? So that's when it started. And I was doing, you know, in church, I would do like as many plays or sing songs as we could. I would always love doing it, you know? But it wasn't until a buddy of mine, Brad, he was doing a community theater. He was part of this Orlando Kids Youth Theater. And they were doing The Wizard of Oz that summer. And I remember being like, "Oh man, like I want to do that, like a real production." This was, I think, the summer before 8th grade. And I was like, man, a real production, like a real musical. And I didn't know really what musicals were. I knew what we had done like in church up to that point. But that's when I was like, okay, I want to do this, you know.
Yeah.
Did that, and that was like my first, real venture into, what it was to do a professional piece,
Were you scared?
Of course,
I mean, like, what
of
was it?
course.
What was going through your head when
Maybe
right before you got on stage? Do you
maybe
remember
not
that?
scared. No, you know what? It's like maybe not scared, nervous, like excited, the adrenaline I'm sure was pumping. Because I think I still feel the same way. I still get
Yeah.
nervous. I still feel the adrenaline kick in. I still want to do well, I want to
Yeah.
do my job correctly. So, it was like we were talking about with Nickelodeon, sitcom acting was what I knew was professional acting. Then I learned about the theater. So when I get to high school, really wanted to be in the drama program and really wanted to just they were doing the Sound of Music that summer or that spring. And that was, I would probably say the beginning of like my professional training. I had some really influential teachers in my life at that time. My chorus teacher was really big in my life, and my drama teacher was really big in my life. I had a couple drama teachers that really just, had come from a really great background. So they were instilling in us, my teacher would say, she'd say, we're not doing high school theater, we're doing theater in a high school.
That's a great way to put it.
So
Yeah,
that was
it's serious. This is business.
it. She was putting it on us to know, like, hey, we're doing serious business here. It's for fun, but you'll have more fun if you take it seriously. You start learning. We'd go to these thespian competitions, is what they were called, and that's when I started learning about college scholarships. Oh, okay, so you go to college for this, okay? And the Olsen twins had just applied to NYU when I was a junior. So I was like, okay, the Olsen twins, who are actors, they go to NYU. And that's in New York. And let's go to New York. That's where actors are. I'm going up there. And the rest was history.
Was California ever in the picture as a possibility when you're in high school?
No, I don't even think so. I don't think California was even in my mind. It was my dad's was born in the Bronx. So I think I came up to New York in 8th grade for a field trip that another influential teacher in my life, she, if you had good grades and you did a certain amount of things that year, she would take a group of kids to New York City. So in 8th grade, I remember it just being a big deal to get to go on this trip, and came up to New York, saw the Phantom of the Opera, had my first New York slice, stayed in Hell's Kitchen, went to the Jekyll and Hyde restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Walked through, Chinatown and got to haggle for some Oakleys. Walked through Battery Park and got to haggle for a fake Rolex, like all these things that to me were larger than life. Had my dad right here over my shoulder. He was a chaperone on that trip. And so I guess it was probably that, the naivete of it all, not even knowing to be intimidated by this city. It's like I was just here with my dad, and my dad's from here. So I'm from here, and that's when I knew. I think that's where the beginning of like, okay, so this is where I belong, like I felt comfortable here.
Well, and having roots in a city like this is a pretty great way
Yeah.
to take the edge off of it.
100%.
Because you come over and you see the city and it is big and intimidating.
It is exactly. Like I remember my dad saying to me when we got up here, he said, okay. He said, every train takes you everywhere. It's just a matter of how much you want to walk when you get off. And I was like, all right, good advice, Dad. Like that now makes perfect sense. So I tell that to anybody that comes to New York. I'm like, yo, man, don't stress about the trains. Every train takes you everywhere. It's just a matter of how much you want to walk when you get off.
Yeah, my son is here with us on this trip, and there's a concert out in Flushing tonight.
Yeah.
And so this morning before I'm getting ready, my wife is like, should we take the subway? Should we do an Uber? I'm like, Uber's going to be expensive. Like, take the E train to Forest Hills, and then he can do a quick Uber to Flushing from 71st Street.
Yeah, it's part of the experience.
Yeah.
How old's your son?
He's 18.
Nice.
So he's
That's
technically a legal adult. Like, if I can't let him take the subway at 18, there's really something. I feel like I'm a failure as a parent.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
What did both your parents, but especially your dad, say to you when you said, I want to be an actor? Because that's the job. That's one of these jobs where it's like, is this going to work out for my kid? This is a real, like, it's a tiny percentage of people that say that end up getting to do it at the level, where you get on TV and in movies.
Yeah.
What did they say? Were they supportive? Were they scared?
The most supportive. I've never seen either of my parents scared for me. Let me say this clearly. They're worried for me all the time. They're my parents.
Yeah.
But when it came to me choosing this as a career, I remember when I said to them, hey, I want to go to NYU for acting. Okay, let's do it. I know now that they went and took a loan out to pay for me to go to school. We don't have show business in our family. My dad is the first person in his family to go to college and graduate. His dad dropped out. My grandfather dropped out in 8th grade, I believe, or 9th grade. And he worked at the New York Health and Racquet Club over there in Central Park South, cleaning towels. I wish I could be a fly on the wall to hear that conversation when they went back to the bedroom. But I know my parents, and I'm sure that honestly, they've just had my back forever, man. Just had it forever, forever. Even when I got to college, it was still something I was doing for fun. It was still something I was
Still a kid, really.
Still a kid. I was 18, going like, oh, I'm going to acting school now. You know, I'm going to New York City. It wasn't until I got here where I had classmates dropping out and going to shoot movies, classmates dropping out and going to originate Broadway roles. You know, that's when you learn about managers and agents and all these things. That's when the business became a reality where I was like, oh, okay, this is how this goes now. Graduate from school, worked on a show called The Electric Company.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd wrapped that up and had some months where, I thought my next job was going to come right away. Once I shot that, I was like, well, it's on now, I'm just going to keep working forever.
I did it. I'm doing it.
And man, things slow down. This thing goes like this, right? And I was in a sad place, and I remember calling my mom and my dad and just crying to them. I was in the middle of Times Square, in front of the Marriott Marquis now, which is funny because now I got to do On Your Feet there. But I was standing in front of the Marriott Marquis, and I'm just bawling my eyes out, just saying, like, what if I don't make it? What if I never get another job? Like, did I do the right thing? And my dad just calmly, very calming presence in my life. And he just said, Papa, like lawyers, they go to school for years. And doctors, they go to school for years.
Yeah.
He's like, do you think that we thought that you were going to make it after 4 years, Papa? Like, did you think we know this takes time? He's like, relax. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. You're doing great, Papa. They've always been in my ear telling me that I'm doing great, that they're proud of me, that to them I'm a star, like, and that is forever gonna stay with me, like just that they've had my back forever without shaking once. They could have had many opportunities to be like, you know what, Papa, maybe we do try something else. Maybe we do study something else. Maybe we, not
Dentist
once,
school is
John.
always there, man.
Not once. It's unbelievable to me that they are like that. Not once.
Was faith part of your life? And was it part of the way they sort of interacted with the world and with you? Because that's always so many people that we've had on the show, and for me, it's like that is often where you're really staying connected to your dreams is when it gets hard.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like you learn the skill of faith however you learn it, right? And, my parents found community in church when I was a kid, right? So that's where I had a sense of community too. Now I've definitely had a long journey with it since then, and love to all those that have their own journeys. But I will say that, a skill that I learned was faith, right? And faith can take many forms. And in this business, you've got to have faith because you're getting told, over and over again, no. So you've got to have faith that like things are going to work out. You've got to believe that things are going to work out. And even when you don't believe, sometimes you're just like, man, it's going to be all right. That's faith. It's a skill. You've got to have faith in relationships, right? That it's going to work out. When you put your trust into somebody else, that's faith, like you got to have faith that like that you're going to be a good dad, right? Like that's believing that
the whole time you have
this whole time you got to have faith that you're believing that you're going to be, that you're trying your best and, you're 6-year-old is looking at you crazy, you know, and you're just like, this is all going to be okay, you know? So it's definitely a skill that I'm happy that I learned as a kid because it's carried on in my life in a lot of different avenues to believe hard in something. And there are many things that I believe in now, you know, and family first and foremost, man.
You've talked about in several interviews, you know, some values that have propelled you in terms of, you know, how to show up for the job. What's your advice for people who need to like make it?
I know I got that from my parents. Their work ethic was incredible. They worked many hours while I was growing up. But I know that every time that they could make it to one of my soccer games or to a chorus concert, they were there. They were there with bells and whistles on, you know?
Yeah.
That's them showing up. They worked long hours and I never heard them complain about that. Like, they just are grinders. And it's, you know, obviously all we have context for these things as we become fathers ourselves, right? And we get older, you're able to look back and be like, wow, you really did all that, mom and dad? You know, like you really did it like that? Man, good on you guys, you know? Like you're going through your own stuff. I'm really thankful and I'm lucky that I get to do this thing that I dreamt about doing for such a long time. So you better believe that I'm going to do everything in my power to hold up my end of the bargain. I get to go out there and I get to play these fun characters that I'm so happy. That base of an emotion. I'm just so happy that people like these characters that, man, like, I'm going to show up to work. You can trust that I'm always going to know my lines. You can trust that I'm always going to be on time. I'm going to give you 110%. Because I'm a lucky cat to be here. So I'm holding on as much as I can to it, you know?
Let's talk about some of those roles. So there's a show coming on that's on Apple.
Yeah.
Called The Big Door Prize. It's got a really neat premise. Tell me about it, because I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
It's about a small town named Deerfield that everything seems to be going great. And a machine shows up that when you sit inside the machine, it tells you your true life potential. And you start finding out pretty soon that it might be speaking truth. So it's kind of like an entire town is having a midlife crisis at the same time, you know, wondering if they were on the path that they should have been on, or maybe they should end this relationship and start a new one, or become a kung fu instructor, or become a photographer, and then a little comedy ensues.
It's funny because it sounds like a fresh take in a way on the movie Big.
Absolutely. It's funny you say big, or you know, when you get a project, they don't title the emails and the scripts like what the actual name of the show is, so that way things stay a little incognito.
Yeah.
Our project was named Zoltar.
Oh yeah.
So we were Zoltar for the first 6 months of production from Big.
So tell me about your role. Like what's your character in this movie, in this show?
I play a guy named Giorgio, who is the youngest Italian-American goalie in New York Rangers history. I injure my catching hand by deadlifting 485 pounds. That number increases every time he tells the story. He is Deerfield's most eligible bachelor. I come back to town, and after I take the insurance payout for my injury, I open an Italian restaurant / sports center so you can have a chicken parm, get up from your table and go play a little Pop-A-Shot or air hockey or Dance Dance Revolution. I've got an automated gondola in my restaurant, giant pasta bowl of spaghetti at the entrance. He's just a dude that's full of life. And he loves hard, sometimes inappropriately.
Sounds like an Italian guy.
Yeah.
This all tracks. This all tracks so far.
He's a very fun character to play. And I have a really cool cast that I enjoy playing with every day. And yeah, it's a real, real fun one.
One of the things that I think's kind of amazing about you is you're in your mid 30s and you have 3 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're married with 3 kids, working in Hollywood, working multiple shows at the same time. I don't know how you have the time to sit here with me right now with how many shows you got happening and movies and Scream. And so one, why did you guys decide to have kids early? Because like by today's standards, you're a young dad. Tell me about it. Tell me about, you and your wife saying, hey, we're gonna do this. Or maybe it didn't say it, it just happened.
No, for sure. We did. I've always dreamt about being a dad. I've always wanted to be a dad. I always pictured playing with my kids. So when I met Brace, my wife, I knew early that she was the one for me. I'm a passionate dude. So I throw myself head first into everything that I do. If I meet you and I like you, we're best friends. That's it. I love you. We're in it from the jump. And the people that I have in my life that are my circle, that are my tribe, I hold near and dear because they've been with me on this whole journey. So when I met Brace, if she was sitting right here, she'd tell you, on our 3rd date, I was like, her brother was getting married in like 6 months. I was like, well, I'm going to that wedding with you, and she's like, are you kidding me? I was like, I'm going to that wedding with you. That's where I'm meeting the family. She's like, okay. We were together a couple years. Confident, man. Like, I just knew it. There was something in it where you never know what you're going to be as a parent, what you're going to be as a partner. You never know what your partner's going to be. But man, she was everything to me. She still is.
I had this with my wife, with Lisa. We met, and it was like, it was instant.
Yeah,
It was one of those things. How did you guys meet?
Met at a buddy's birthday party, a mutual friend of ours.
In IRL.
That's it. In real life. That's it.
Before all these swiping left and right stuff and
right
all that
before,
stuff.
Correct. He introduced us right when I walked in. There was a group of college friends for them, so that she was catching up with people that she hadn't seen in a while. Introduced us, and she was like, good to meet you, back to her friends.
She pulled the reverse thing that
she really did.
The players like, oh no, you gotta.
She hit me hard with that. Exactly. She's like, yeah, I'll see you later.
Were you like, did it hit you or not?
Absolutely. I remember vividly walking in and seeing her standing there surrounded by her friends, and they were all just laughing, and me being like, whoa, hold on, I gotta figure out how to talk to her. And I remember seeing her pack up her bag to leave, and as she's walking out, I was like, hey, we haven't talked yet.
And she's like,
what do you mean? What are you talking about? We haven't talked yet. I was like, what if we're supposed to get married one day and we didn't even talk tonight? And she's like, are you kidding me with that, dude? She's like, okay, so talk, what do you want to say? And I was like, oh, well, where are you from? And just try to chat her up for 10, 15 minutes. She had to get up early the next day. And I was like, you're lying. You're just trying to leave the party because you don't want to talk to me. She's like, no, I really have to get up the next day. And I was like, all right, take my number down. And since you have to be up at 5 a.m, text me when you wake up and prove to me that you're getting up at 5. She's like, okay, fine. Gave her my number the next morning at 5 a.m. Boop, boop. And the rest was history, and then went from there.
Impressive. Impressive maneuver.
So yeah, we were chatting about being a dad, right?
Yeah.
And I just always knew I wanted to be a dad, and I found an incredible partner, and she's an incredible mom, and one thing led to the next, and I've always felt that with this business, there's enough chaos going on, that you don't know when the job's going to start. You don't know when it's going to end. You're going on these auditions. And that to me is my craft. It's my career. It's where I put my work into that, but I was always seeking out love, man, just a partner. Like, was always trying to find that person that was going to be on this journey with me, that I could have a family with, that would give me that thing that I'd always dreamt of, which is, man, doing exactly what I'm doing. I was playing Super Mario this morning on a Super Nintendo with my 6-year-old. He's off school today. That's what I was doing this morning, and playing, games with my boys. Like, that's it, like it brings me a lot of joy, man. It brings me, it's the best job I've ever had, man. It's the thing I'm most proud of.
So do you have 3 boys? From my
3 boys.
Okay, so your first son is born.
Yeah.
How did that rewire your brain? There's this concept called the dad brain. Like our brains get a little get rewired. What was that experience when that happened? Where he comes out, he's healthy, and now you're a dad.
So I'll tell you the whole story. So I was working on Arrow at the time. That's in Vancouver. We shot that.
Yeah.
So Brace was 7 months pregnant when I got that job. I was wrapping up a show called On Your Feet here. We moved to Vancouver. We put everything in storage. And it was just me, my girl, and our baby, man. Just, it felt like we were hibernating. I had no friends out there other than the people I just met on this show. So all we did was I'd go to work and I'd head on home and be with Brace, you know? My mother-in-law comes out, an incredible mother-in-law, Mary Ellen, I love her to pieces. She comes out with us, and I got a week off from work around our due date. Just waited it out till Gus arrived. Had an awesome time. Gus arrives, and I went outside, and I called my dad. And I was just, once again, I cry a lot, man. I'm an emotional dude.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page on that.
Calling my dad, I'm just crying to him on the phone, just telling him, like, I just want to be a good dad. I want to be like you, man, you know? And I just remember him saying, like, Papa, you're going to be a great dad. And I think it was this pressure that I had put on myself at that moment to be as good a dad as my dad was to me. Because at the time, you don't know what it takes. You don't know what it is to be a dad, right? So it was this new feeling all of a sudden, like, now he's here. Now what do I do, Dad? You know, like, what did you do all the time? You know, like, how did this happen? You know, how did you raise me? You know, just all these giant macro questions.
And you know, not to overgeneralize, but you know, like my wife read all the What to Expect books and all this stuff, and she's doing all this prep, and I wasn't doing any of that.
You're just there, right? You're just like, I'm here, I'm ready to rock. I read one book.
You did?
I read one book
What
sent
was
to
it?
me by my buddy Chris York. It was called, oh man, it was called Congrats, You're Gonna Be a Dad, or like Good Luck, You're Gonna Be a Dad, and like funny writing.
Yeah.
And it basically broke it in humor, broke it all down, you know. But I just remember calling my dad, and once again, another time in my life where my dad, without saying too much, just a calming presence, I was like, Papa, you're gonna be a great dad. That's it, you know, like, don't worry about it. And now, of course, it's in practice, right? Where
Yeah,
I think back.
How has that played out now?
I think back, like, when I am sad that I'm missing something because I'm off shooting, I remember that I don't think about the things that my parents missed because they were working. I think about when they were there.
Yeah.
I think about what they would say to me at night before bed. They never put me to bed without kissing me goodnight. They never went more than a day without telling us how much they loved us, how lucky they were to have us. Those are the things that stick in your mind. Not whatever soccer games they didn't get to. Now knowing that my parents had to work Saturdays, you know, had to work Sundays. You don't think about that stuff. You think about the way they made you feel. It's not what someone says. It's not what someone does. It's how they make you feel. That's it with parenting, right? So with my boys, I just want to be a presence in their life. Just read the other day that, I guess it was like, they had asked some kids, when do you feel most loved by your parents? And the answer was, when they play with me. So that's it. I just want to play. I just want to be there. I read a while ago a Robin Williams interview where he talked about he felt happiest as a dad when he like always wanted to meet them at their level.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to play monsters in tunnels, let's play monsters in tunnels, man. And let's get down on the ground. Let's be eye level. Let's crawl and climb and build tunnels with pillows. Let's just do it all, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do it all with them. Just want to be their best bud, their friend.
So how are you manage? You got 3 kids now.
Yeah.
And you got like 3, 4, 5, 10 TV shows, movies on the air. How are you navigating that? How are you making the time when you're this busy? Because whether you're a Hollywood celebrity or not, like we're all busy.
Yeah.
This is how do you prioritize with your kid for your kids and your wife and your family time?
I think first and foremost, I'm really lucky to have a partner like I do. Like, Brace is an incredible partner to me and an incredible mom to those boys. And I got really lucky with her. If I'm on location, when Gus is on spring break or winter break, because now he's in first grade, before he was in school, we were a little traveling circus family. They came with me everywhere, Once we started school, it's on breaks, days off, they'll come to me, My wife is holding it down, traveling with 3 kids, sometimes with our dog too. So if you ever see in the airport, give her a little love for me, That's always a trip, but man, there's no better feeling than getting that selfie of her and them on the plane, and there are 3 little seats on the plane, and now Bo included, because it's Gus who's 6, there's Hank who's 3, and there's Bo who's 5 months, about to be 6 months. Just seeing them all smiling, getting to come to Dada's work apartment is what they call it. But how do we do it? It's prioritizing it. It's knowing that I'm at my best when I am making time for my boys and for my wife. Like, I'm just at my best. I feel at my best, physically.
Yeah.
I got to sweat a little bit. I like hitting the gym. Artistically, I love when I'm in work mode, because it gets my juices flowing. I love what I get to do. I love crafting these characters and getting to play. But man, my heart needs them. I need to go to the playground with them. I need to be that drop off and pick up from school when I can be. I need that FaceTime before bed. It doesn't always happen, but I'll make sure it happens as much as it can.
Yeah.
Like, my 3-year-old always makes me laugh. It's so funny too, seeing how different they are. My oldest, he's real cerebral already, and he's the oldest. So he's cool, man. He's chill. I love you, Dada, from like the other side of the room on the FaceTime. Whereas my 3-year-old, when I leave, he holds onto my leg, Dada, I don't like it when you get on planes. It makes me very sad. And I'm like, I know, Papa. But of course, the emotion inside me is also like, good job, like, talking about your emotions, like, good job, Hank. That's so good, But that same 3-year-old, Hank, when I'm on the FaceTime, he holds me and he walks around with me and he just kind of looks at the phone. We'll chit chat as much as we can on there. And yeah, man, that's just, you make that time. Like, you prioritize it. If you get a chance, you just make it happen.
In prepping for this, I was hitting the Google, and when you Google your name, you come up with some funny things. You come up with a picture of you, ironing, shirtless, and you've got this role on The Other Two on HBO. This is the first time I've heard this term, himbo.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that term either. I think it was just invented a few months ago, because I said, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
hey, put me there next to it. I'm with it.
On your tombstone, perhaps.
Himbo, that's it. Yeah, that's it right there. I'm down. Literally, that's the only word I wanted to say.
That's
just
it.
quote unquote himbo. I think it is an affectionate term used for characters that their eyebrows are slightly raised all the time, and they like to find the positive outlook on things constantly. Earnest, let's call them, sincere, let's call them, loyal, let's call them,
Well, it could be, like himbo as in him bimbo.
Right.
I've also seen the formula is hot bimbo.
Oh,
or
hilarious.
Hot idiot male. So
hilarious.
So that's a funny.
That's hilarious.
Have you been playing with that? How do you play with masculinity in your work?
I mean, I'm not thinking about the way I'm playing a character. I'm just, and I'm not thinking about the aesthetic of what the character is. I'm just trying to play him honestly. I try to picture myself if I was raised in those circumstances. That's the first thing I do. I was like, okay, what if Josh grew up in Brooklyn, was an aspiring shoe designer, worked at the Foot Locker. It's not very far off. I worked at a place called Just for Feet in Altamont Springs, this town that next to where I grew up in. And you know, with Giorgio, he opens his Italian restaurant. I used to work at the Olive Garden. All these things are actually pretty close to what I am.
He's like, I'm gonna do real Italian this time.
Yeah,
Olive Garden got a lot of salt and butter. Let's like dial that back a little.
What's funny is that we actually use Olive Garden breadsticks in our restaurant on the show.
They are
It
good.
smells so good at work every day. It really does.
Just salt and butter with a little bit of wheat in there somewhere.
Absolutely, man. I still remember vividly opening that oven at the Olive Garden, taking a few. Oh, it's so good. That bread oven is great. Honestly, I've been really lucky with really good writing, and they've given me these characters that, you know, in the bigger picture, facilitate something on the show.
How do you think about the father portrayals on television? We talk about this a lot in our office because there's plenty of positive ones, but there's also a lot of like, even himbo's an upgrade from the way dad sometimes gets portrayed.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
I think, like, you know, it's a television, film, the theater. It's the best versions of it are reflections of our society, right? And there's a lot of different types of dads out there, and to the pops that are struggling, I send them love, you know, and like to the pops that are trying their best, I send them love. And
To the Al Bundys.
hey, man, to the Al Bundys of the world, you know, send them love, you know, like, I don't know, man. I just always want to have as much compassion as I can to everybody's journey, right? And I love talking to other dads, and I love hearing other dads' experiences. And when I'm working with a child of somebody that was in the business growing up,
Yeah.
I pepper them with questions. I got to work on Heels with Mike O'Malley's daughter, and we spent a day together, basically.
Is she funny too?
She's awesome. She's so sweet, so kind, so funny. And, you know, I probably gave her maybe like 20 minutes of us just like getting to know her, to chop it up. And I was like, all right, so I'm just going to tell you now. I hope it's okay if I just ask you a bunch of really vulnerable questions, because I just want to know what life was like growing up with a dad that's in show business.
Yeah.
Tell me everything, you know?
Yeah, because now you're the dad in show business.
And she was an open book, and she loves Mike, you know, and we just talked about her as a kid, what she remembers, something I took from her. And we actually got to say this to Mike, you know, and it was so sweet seeing him, because, you know, that's his baby on set. So he's a showrunner of this multi-million-dollar thing. And then between takes, I'd see him, and then I'd see him like creep over and be like, "Is you okay? Everything good?" She's like, "I'm good, Dad." And he's like, "Okay, love you. I'll see you a little bit." You know, off he goes.
Yeah.
She said she has two younger brothers. And she would say that whenever her and her brothers would fight, Mike would stop them. Be like, "Hey, don't fight with your brother. Don't fight with your sister. Hug each other right now. Hug each other and tell each other you love each other." And it is awesome. I took that from her, and now I do it to my boys. They could be picking. And I'd be like, "Hey, don't fight with your brother. Don't pick on him. Give him a hug right now and tell him you love him." That smile that they get is hilarious.
Yeah, because they're not in that place.
They're not in that place, but they're just picking on each other, right? So then I tell
How
them
many
that.
times is the hug a little like this?
That's it. They're just like, "Love you, brother," you know? But it's so funny and so sweet. But she told me that. She's like, it kept us close forever, you know? So I'm always just trying to take from those that are in somewhat of a similar position that I'm in, you know, now raising my boys.
We made a short film a couple of years ago called Off the Rails about a woman named Lenore Skenazy, New Yorker. She let her 9-year-old son take the subway by himself, which for you, maybe it doesn't sound crazy. It didn't sound crazy to me, but she ended up being labeled the world's worst mom. So when are you going to let your kids take the subway? What age?
Okay.
By themselves.
So I'll tell you a funny story. One
You're
of my
like,
dear
already done
friends- Already done it. 3 years old. A dear friend of mine, her son's name is Hudson, and her husband's name is Peter. They're incredible parents. And
Don't unleash Child Protective Services on your friends, but what you're about to
no, check
share.
this out. Check this out. It's awesome. Hudson thought that he had taken the subway the first few times by himself. And I believe I'm telling the story right. He said it to them at like a dinner when he was like 16. And they told him at 16, because this was when he was about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And they're like, you never took the subway by yourself those first couple times. And he's like, what are you talking about? They would put him, because they lived uptown, and he had to get on the A train to go to his school downtown. So they would say, okay, you're going to go by yourself on the train today, okay? And Peter would get on the car in front of him, and Andrea would walk him down to the train. So Peter was watching from afar, but Hudson thought he was by himself.
It's long distance helicopter.
It's long distance, making sure just those first few times.
It's like CIA parent.
Tracking, that's exactly it. So I will definitely be doing that. I will be the CIA parent watching from afar. But man, Gus is 6. Gus can already navigate our entire neighborhood. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. By 9.
By 9, he'll be taking the train. He'll be navigating. Even our 3-year-old, I know, could get to and from his school. I know it. When we're walking in the morning, he's not behind me. He's in front of me. He's in front of me 10, 15 feet on his scooter. He's hanging his left, hanging his right. He knows where he's going, you know. It's just us, right? It's just me when I will be able to.
Right.
They run that neighborhood, you know.
All right. Before we wrap up, I got a couple of rapid fire questions for you.
Can't wait.
All right. Here we go. This is our
Let's do it.
kind of a rip off of Inside the Actors Studio.
Let's go. I love it.
Okay. We talked about this a little bit, but what's the number one lesson you learned from your dad?
Compassion. My dad is he always gives people the benefit of the doubt. Always. He's never quick to judge. Compassion.
It's a good lesson. All right. What's the most dangerous thing you ever did as a child?
I would disappear from my parents all the time. It's like I was telling you.
You sound like my wife.
I disappear all the time. I was a kid that would go to Walmart after school. My mom was working, so I was always by myself running through Walmart, you know, playing in the toy section, going to the cafeteria like I told you. So I would disappear from them at theme parks. My favorite thing to do would be to disappear from them at a department store the second we got in, because I knew that whenever I was done doing whatever I wanted to do, I could just go to the customer service and they would announce, Damaris Segarra, Enrique Segarra, your son Josh was at the front customer service waiting for you. Damaris Segarra, Enrique Segarra, your son Josh. I just knew that was the way to get to my parents.
Yeah.
I was fearless as a little kid running around those stores.
What's the most dangerous thing you've let any of your kids do so far? So they're only 6, but 6 is the oldest. But what do you got?
I want them to be fearless. Like, I don't want them to be at a theme park. I got one. We went to a water park, and as we're pulling up to the water park, my oldest, Gus, sees the torpedo slide thing, straight down one.
Yeah.
And he was like, Dada, let's go on that first. And there was a part of me
Sounds like my son.
I was like, no, what are you talking about? That's terrifying, you know?
Did he even go above the thing? Was there like the height thing?
Just made 48 inches. I think it even was like an inch below. So I was just telling him, like, stand real tall, Papa, you know, stand real tall. And he's like, let's go on that first. And my reaction was to be like, nah. And I just held it in. I was like, great, love that idea. Let's do it. Went on that first. He came off. It was like his eyes were this big. And he was like, that was so scary. And I was like, yeah, it was. That's awesome. That's awesome. He's fearless. They're fearless, my boys.
That's the best. All right. Touched on this a little bit, but what does masculinity mean to you?
Loving hard. It's being vulnerable. It's you find the people in your life that mean something to you. And with them you can have open conversation. You can have honest conversations. You can let the ugly parts of you be seen, because you trust that when they show you their ugly parts, you're still going to have their back. You know, because to them, what might be ugly to you is beautiful. Don't be scared in any of that. Just be vulnerable, be open, be honest, and love hard. You know, if you cry, cry, papito. You know, like, just cry. It's awesome to cry. Let it out. You know, if you're sad, be sad. It's all good. You know, And I find that for me, that works best. You know, if I'm sad for 6 hours. And then, whew, all right, man, that felt good. Let's go. You know, on to the next, because I let myself feel it. If I'm sad for 2 days, hey, all good. Feel it.
How did you learn that? Because, I'll just speak for myself, but I think, growing up on the East Coast, I know that your tradition's got a similar thing. Italian men can be kind of like closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Puerto Rican men, I think that's the same
Yeah.
thing. We can kind of be a little tough-edged, a
Yeah.
little like machismo.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like your dad was like that, but
No.
did you have that in your community and stuff? Did you overcome that, or were you always open-hearted and your dad was open-hearted and you just knew it?
My dad has always been open-hearted. And I had a lot of great men in my life growing up. My tío Raúl, my uncle Raúl, moved in with us when I was a kid, when I was 8 or 9. He left Puerto Rico, and his older brother is my dad. My dad's got 9, 10, or 11 years on him. So basically, my mom and my dad were another form of parents for him.
Yeah.
So when he left the island, he came and moved in with us. So I also think of him as my other dad. An incredible guy. He'd take me to his softball games with him. Just another really big influence in my life. So I was raised by great men, very loving men, so that's,
Yeah.
I'm a Puerto Rican kid and I was raised by Puerto Ricans, and all the men in my life were loving and funny and compassionate to each other. Like, vivid memories of the men in my life that I grew up with, like hugging each other.
Oh yeah.
So
And kissing.
kissing each other on the cheek, just kissing each other. A lot of love in the community I grew up in, and that to me is family, So I'm really close with my cousins. The people in my life that I love, I tell them all the time that I love them. I love you, man. I'll see you later. I love you, bro. I'll see you later. So that's just the way that I communicate with those people, and I know it was because I was raised by men and women like that, just very loving, passionate Puerto Ricans,
Sometimes we get a little hot-headed,
Hey, man, that's part of it. That's part of
You
it.
take the good with the bad.
That's it. That's part of it, man. At least you always know what I'm thinking. There's never any confusion with how I feel about something.
What's the most valuable thing you've learned from your kids?
Man, sometimes things ain't all that serious. Like, I could be all worked up about whatever, and then I'll walk into the room and like, one of my boys will be like, "Dada, why you have that look on your face? Dada, are you mad?" And then I'll be like, "Am I mad? What am I mad about? Why am I so mad about this? You're right, I am mad, Papa. What do you want to do?" And I'll be like, "Can we go play this game? Can we go draw? Can we go ride our bikes?" And you're like, "Yeah, let's go do that." So I think it's sometimes things ain't all that serious, and to be in the moment, just to be in the moment with them.
Man, that's a lesson all of us need, right?
Yeah,
Especially these days.
for sure.
All right. What's your favorite dad joke or shtick? As you get older, you'll find that, no matter how cool you are, you will become cringe
Absolutely.
to your kids.
Absolutely.
I now embrace the cringe.
Of course. Of course.
All right.
You
So
got to.
What dad jokes have you got?
There was a king who loved riddles. So he puts out a riddle to his town. He says, what's green, pink, and yellow? One gentleman walks up and he says, it's a car. He said, no, not a car. Next gentleman walks up and he says, it's a house. A house is green, pink, and yellow. He's like, no, it's not a house. And then a Puerto Rican man walks up and he says, I know. It's a telephone. A telephone? He said, yeah. A teléfono. It goes green, green. I pink it up and I say yellow.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thanks.
That's classic.
Thanks.
Okay. What did your dad teach you about God?
The biggest thing that I take from those years that I was in church growing up was faith. It's like we were talking about, For those that are in church, man, your faith is in God, right? For some people, it's the faith is in the energy in the world. For some people, faith is in their community. For actors, and your faith is in that you're going to succeed. So, you know, if anybody has the power and the skill to believe in anything, believe powerfully, that's a skill, and that's a great one, to believe and to trust. So I'm very thankful that I learned that skill set early, to have faith, you know, to believe in something, you know, because now I believe in a lot of things. I believe in my boys. I believe in my wife. I believe in my friends. I believe in being good to others. I believe in treating everybody with kindness. I believe in sticking up for yourself. I believe for loving hard. I believe in being passionate about things and not hiding who you are. Man, like, all of us are perfect just the way we are. And we all got to have a little compassion for each other. And we all got to have each other's backs. Everyone's trying their best, you know? Everybody's trying their best. So, to each their own. And when it comes to me, man, I'm going to love you no matter what, you know? No matter what. And there's a lot of people out there that get attacked for who they are. And there's a lot of people out there that get a lot of hate thrown their way. And to those, I just want to say that, like, I feel for you. And I wish I could hug you, give you a kiss on the cheek, on the mouth, and just tell you, man, I got your back, yo. And I'll do everything in my power to have your back, you know? And to those that are throwing the hate, and to those that are judging, chill a little bit. Just chill a little bit. Have a little more compassion for others, yo. Everyone's trying their best.
My last question, I ask it of every guest.
Hell yeah.
You play a lot of roles as an actor.
Mm.
How do you think about your role in the American story? You know, we're called Dad Saves America, and it's partly because I think that that role has a big impact. Family, out to community, and out to the country. How do you think about what your role is?
I love being a dad. I'm proud that I get to be on this podcast with you, to get to be here with you. That I can show that being dad is fun. That your life ain't over when you got kids. That you're making these memories. I'm really proud of the fact that I get to chase my dreams and have a family. Thankful to my wife for that. Dude, I'm just a really fortunate dude, man. And you can't plan all these things, right? But I will say that I can look back now and realize that all these little dots along the way were all connected. They started when I was a kid with my parents and with my brother and my sister. And they've all connected to where we are now. I'm really proud of my family. And, you know, now I'm just getting to watch my boys grow up. So, man, it's a big question. Like, where do I fit into this world, you know? I'm proud to be one little dot on this flag, on this map. Of just trying my best and doing my best every day, you know? And I'm really appreciative to those that watch my stuff. They get a kick out of it. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the love. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Josh, thanks for being on Dad Saves America.
Thank you, John.
It's been a
I
ton of
appreciate
fun,
this,
man.
Yeah, thanks for the chat. Appreciate it.